Okay, welcome to the first edition of Honest Craft Beer Reviews Style Sessions. Today, of course, being early November, we're going to focus on pumpkin beers. Pumpkin beers, usually these days, they start to come out a little early, around August, which is too early for some folks, myself included. But I like to start to enjoy them around September, October, right into Thanksgiving. Um, that seeming to be the perfect season for those styles of beers. I have today several prominent members of our group. I have Tom, the Beer Whisperer Mulvihill. I have Dave Coulter and Scott White. And all of these guys are accomplished beer reviewers, and we're glad to have them in Honest Craft Beer Reviews. And we hope that you will check out their YouTube channels. And guys, feel free to plug your channel at the end of your segment. We're going to start with a little overview of the pumpkin beers, and as we go around the room, everybody is drinking one, and we'll talk about the ones that we each have. So a little of the history of the style. Pumpkin beers are interesting to me because when you think about beer and you think about most of the craft beers in America today, um, you're largely talking about European styles that either American brewers have adapted and modified and ramped up and imperialized, or maybe they're just brewing a straight classic example of the style. But almost invariably, they're European styles that we've sort of adopted. Pumpkin beers are a little bit different. They're unique because pumpkins are uniquely American. They're native to North America. And so pumpkin beer is perhaps one of the few truly American beer styles. When you talk about being as American as apple pie, you could also say as American as pumpkin ale. At least that's one of the things that I like to say. How did pumpkin ale get started? So it really was a result of a shortage of barley. When the Mayflower landed in 1620, supplies were limited, and even as more and more settlers came to New England and Virginia and other parts of the East Coast, malt at first had to be imported, and so did hops. So with malt in short supply at times, the early settlers really would ferment anything they could get their hands on, and pumpkins were abundant; they were everywhere. So why not make beer out of them? There's a little ditty from the 17th century that goes, "If barley be wanting to make into malt, we must be contented and find it no fault, for we can make liquor to sweeten our lips of pumpkins and parsnips and walnut tree chips." So that's a little bit of the history of it. The early pumpkin ales would have been either some of them would have been entirely fermented from pumpkin with seasoning. It may or may not have been hops because, again, those would have been in short supply too. They wouldn't have been spiced like today's beers. Some of them would have been a sort of partial malt, barley malt with pumpkin to eke them out. But that being said, the pumpkin beer fad sort of died out as things changed. Barley could be grown here in the States as time went by, or more easily imported as the colonies became more prosperous. And it sort of fell by the wayside until about 1985. And in 85, Buffalo Bill Hayward of Hayward's Brewpub, Buffalo Bill's Brewpub fame in California, he introduced really the American example of the style. That's what I'm drinking tonight, and that is the Buffalo Bill's Pumpkin Ale. And I've got a glass of it here. And he changed it a little bit. He did use pumpkin and malt to brew his example, and but he added spices to it to make it sort of like a pumpkin pie and give it that sort of allure and attraction. The pumpkin ales started to take off in the 90s. Lots of brewers added them. Blue Moon is probably the biggest commercial example and most widely available. It is a Coors beer, but craft brewers started to really to produce them in large numbers too. I actually have a copy of, it's a little dog-eared. This is my original copy of Michael Jackson's World Guide to Beer, and you can see Buffalo Bill in there. This was the first time that I had ever heard of such a thing back in 1988, reading this book. I was fascinated by the notion of pumpkin ales. I didn't get to try the Buffalo Bills till probably around 1991. But today it's still the classic for me. And I think there are more examples of this style on the market today than there have ever been before, and it's just exploding. It's becoming increasingly popular, and some of them you can't even keep on the store shelves. Just for example, the Harpoon Imperial Pumpkin, I made the mistake of grabbing one bottle instead of more this year, and when I went back for more, they were gone. So here's to Buffalo Bill and his pumpkin ale, and cheers. And with that, I'm actually going to, our own Red Rooster wanted to join. He left us a voice message, and he actually is sampling the Pike, I think it's the Harlot's Harvest Pumpkin Ale. And just a quick moment for Red's comments, and then I'll pass it around the room.
My personal experience with pumpkin beer began probably in about 1991. It was with Buffalo Bill's Pumpkin Ale, which is the original pumpkin ale. It came as a Beer of the Month Club selection. And at the time, it was contract brewed by Dubuque Star in Iowa. And also at the time, there was nothing like it. It was the only pumpkin beer available. Never seen anything like it. I tasted it for the first time. I liked it. I don't think I was crazy about it because it wasn't really too spiced. You could really taste the pumpkin flavor in it and the pumpkin aromas, which I liked. But it was something very different and unique at the time. So I didn't really know what to think about it at first. After trying that Buffalo Bills, then I went on to see a lot of other brew pub examples starting to show up on my local markets, and those were more of the pumpkin pie type ones. And I really enjoyed the pumpkin pie in a glass effect with the pumpkin and the spices, and a lot of them were more spiced, and some had more pumpkin aromas and flavors, but I really got hooked on pumpkin beer. I think the next big step for me was Post Road Pumpkin Ale, and when John and I first tried Post Road Pumpkin Ale, it was another contract brew, but it was contract brewed at Catamount Brewing Company, which is no longer a brewery in Vermont. And they contract brewed it for the Post Road Brewing Company, which was in Framingham, Massachusetts. So I had that early version, and that was an excellent one as well. So I just continued on drinking them, a lot more brew pub examples, like I said, and then Dogfish Head was the next really big. Dogfish Head was the next really big pumpkin beer for me, and then by that time, you started to see more and more examples on the market. What kind of pumpkin ales do I like? I like them all, really. I like the ones that really feature the pumpkin flavors and aromas and not so spicy. I like the pumpkin pie ones that are super, super spicy with cinnamon, clove, nutmeg, cardamom, you name it. I like the barrel-aged versions. I like the double pumpkins. I like them all. What I like about pumpkin ale is there's no right or wrong with it. It's whatever they want it to be, and some I like much better than others. But there's such range within this style. It's just fantastic. Pumpkin ale is great because you can have a pumpkin ale be whatever you want it to be. I've had pumpkin vice beers. I've had pumpkin porters, pumpkin stouts. You name it. They can do it. So what we know of pumpkin beer, the history of it is a unique American beer style. It started in colonial days, and it started out of necessity. I mean, a no-brainer, really. Malt was hard to find, short supplies of malt. Colonists, the brewers, they needed, some fermentable sauce, and pumpkins were plentiful, so that's the reason. It was more so as a fermentable than for a flavor or anything like that. So it's come full circle, I think. We have all these different examples, as I stated earlier. I like them all. The beer that I was going to review, I'm not here, unfortunately, was Harlot's Harvest Pike Pumpkin Ale, and that was from the Pike Brewery in Seattle, Washington, and that is 8% alcohol by volume, so that would be considered an imperial pumpkin or a double pumpkin. And anybody who's had Pike knows what a great brewery Pike is, and this beer is just fantastic. So if you see it on your market, pick it up. It's only about $6 a bottle. I got it at my local Total Wine and More at a very good price. They even knock it down when they start getting a little older. Whereas the pumpkin season progresses and they think, you know, they got too much of it, and the Christmas beers come out, you can get it as cheap as $2 a bottle. So it's one worth looking for sure.
That's our own Red Rooster, who unfortunately couldn't be here but wanted to contribute. He did make a good point about prices. I don't know why, but I've noticed that pumpkin beers, perhaps it's the broad appeal they're looking for, but the prices in many cases are fairly reasonable. I know this year, in most years, I've paid $7.99 a six-pack for the Buffalo Bills, but I got it for $7.19 this year. The Harpoon Imperial Pumpkin was only $5.99, and a lot of the other ones are reasonable too. And so with that, I'm going to introduce the legendary Tom the Beer Whisperer Mulvihill. Tom, take it away and tell us what pumpkin beer you're drinking and your thoughts on the style.
All right, well, thanks, John. Yeah, I want to comment real quick. I liked what he said about there's no wrong. To do something with the pumpkin, you can do so many different things. There's no wrong way to take the style. And that's kind of brings me to what I'm doing, actually, is being the crazy ass that I am, I've actually popped 3 beers. I've popped this Big Muddy Pumpkin Smasher, a 6% spiced pumpkin ale. I popped the 5.8%. Let me show you the can here, if you can see it. Get my hand in there. I'm triple fisted. I'm going to use my man boobs to hold up the other one. In action. What's interesting about the Kirkwood Station is 5.8%, only 6 IBUs, so the IBUs are really inconsequential here. But what's interesting about this one is they add vanilla, which not only gives you that pumpkin pie element, but it gives you that pumpkin pie with whipped cream element. That's what makes this one interesting. And I've also popped the Crown Valley Imperial Pumpkin Smash. Now, if you've noticed, 2 out of the 3 that I have are Missouri beers. The other one isn't, but it's close. It's Murfreesboro, Illinois. So not local, but I've tried to capture 3 beers that were in my neighborhood. And I kind of wanted to make that point that Red was making, that there is no wrong way to go. I've got 2 pumpkin ales that do completely different things. The Pumpkin Smasher does give you that pumpkin pie presence. And it also adds something I haven't tasted most of them, is that you also feel the crust in this particular beer. You know, most of them you taste pumpkins and spices, so you draw yourself to pumpkin pie, but you don't feel the crust. But this one you feel the crust in. Now, the Kirkwood Station I mentioned, you feel the pumpkin pie, but you also feel the whipped cream, which I feel is a different element. And here we go, last one. Shut up, Tom. Okay, here we go. And the Imperial Pumpkin Smash is 10.6%, 48 IBUs. It is a big Imperial Stout that really makes the most of the pumpkin. A lot of these types of beers will swallow up the pumpkin gets lost. This one on the nose, I get big smoke. I feel the pumpkin quite a bit, and then the other spice. And although the flavor is mostly the smoke, the chocolate, and everything else that you get from an Imperial Stout, you do feel the pumpkin amongst it all. It isn't the star in this beer, but it doesn't get lost either. So anyway, that's what I wanted to do. I just kind of wanted to showcase the differences between pumpkin ales. You know, the different usage of pumpkin in a beer. So I'll pass it along.
Well, thank you, Tom. That's fantastic. Really great. And Tom reminds me that in all the blabbering I didn't even describe much about the Buffalo Bills. Of course, you know, this is just a standard. It's not a stout or it's not a heavy beer. I think it's a little over 5% alcohol by volume, and it's actually just a good balance between a little bit of caramel malt up front. And a little bit of pumpkin flavor. This one I've always thought has the pumpkin flavor more than some of the other beers, and that's important in a pumpkin beer, I think.
It's actually the first one that I had as well. I had it probably about 95 was the first time I had it, but it was the first pumpkin ale that I had.
The Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, the Buffalo Bills, yes.
Yeah. I think this is probably the first for a lot of people, as it started the trend, and it just has the perfect amount of spices. To me, the nutmeg and the cinnamon, they really accent the pumpkin and the malt, and then they dry it out nicely in the finish. All right, and that said, I'm going to hand it over to another legend of the beer world, and that's Dave Coulter. If you've never checked out his channel, Beer Sampling with Dave, you're missing out, and you ought to do that. And on to Dave to tell you more about that and the beer he's drinking.
Well, tonight I have my favorite pumpkin ale. It's the Pumpkin from Southern Tier Brewing Company, located in Lakewood, New York. This is an Imperial Pumpkin Ale. I think it checks in at 8.6%. I think I'm right about that. 8.6. Yeah, I can't quite read it. I don't have my glasses on. But I tell you what, my friends, if you allow this beer to warm properly, this is just like your grandmother or possibly your great-grandmother's pumpkin pie recipe. This thing is full of spices. You want to talk about cinnamon, clove, cardamom, nutmeg. It's all in here, my friends. But the one thing that I have never detected in here is the alcohol. This is a dangerously smooth and easy drinking beer. And even though this is 22 ounces, believe me, I'm going to finish this in short order and pop open another one, because I buy this stuff by the case. I don't buy it by the single bottle. I buy it by the case. And I get a discount for that. I don't know if that's entirely legal in Ohio, and I'm not here to discuss that, but my friend gives me a discount. But, and I finally picked up some glassware, too. I wanted some last year, and I couldn't find it. And then this year, during Cleveland Beer Week, they were sold out real quick. And I happened to find one at our local supermarket. Oh, I just said, hey, that's mine now. So, yeah. Pardon me while I have a sip. I'm telling you, gentlemen, and I know you've all tried it, but this is just like, I remember my great-grandmother. Now, I was just a little boy. I was probably about 8 years old. And she would labor in that kitchen for hours at Thanksgiving and Christmas, making fresh pumpkin pie with the pumpkins that we grew right there on the property. And I'm telling you, this is just like her pumpkin pie. Exactly. I wish she were still alive so she could bake a pie and I could drink some of this beer, because it would be hand in hand, no doubt. Yeah. That's all I really have to say about the beer. I highly endorse it. I know a lot of people don't like this beer because it's a little too spiced up for them. But I think it's, that's what makes the world go round, my friends. We all like something just a little bit different in life. And if we all like the same things, we'd be drinking something else, I guess, right? So I'll pass it back off to our moderator, John, for the next call of duty here.
Thanks, Dave. I thought that was fantastic. That's a great beer, and you really did it justice. One of my favorite examples of the style. I like to pick it up every year. So that'll bring us to my Sam Adams brother from another mother, Scott White. And Scott does beer reviews on YouTube under, I think you call your channel Beer Geek Beer Reviews. Is that right, Scott?
That is very correct.
Okay, and Scott does some great stuff too. I mentioned the Sam Adams connection, but like I do, he really enjoys Sam Adams beers. But he's an expert on all styles, and he's sampled beers from hundreds of breweries around the country and around the world. So Scott, take it away and give us your take on pumpkin ales.
Well, first off, I decided instead of going afar and going out there and searching for, many of the other options, because to each of us, I mean, there could be a specific pumpkin ale that we just adore or just truly love throughout the holiday seasons, throughout October, November, even to be able to have one during our Thanksgiving dinner, per se. But I decided to try out a local option. And I'll tell you this much, I mean, this might be my first time having this beer, and it is just phenomenal. I decided to go ahead with Akron, Ohio's Hoppin' Frog. It's their double pumpkin. It's called their barrel-aged Hoppin' Frogs Hollow Double Pumpkin Ale. This is actually aged in whiskey barrels, and they did it right, in my opinion. And by that, I mean you get a beautiful, full-bodied ale, in my opinion, and it's got the pumpkin is very pronounced. The spices are there. They're lighter than it would be per se in the Pumpkin, but also you get a quick shot of like that barrel aged, kind of smoothness and a little bit of the vanillic note. And as it's going across your palate, it also lingers and gives you a little bit of that warming feeling, like you just took a shot of some really good whiskey. But in the end, I mean, it also, to me, lingers because it's a very sticky beer. My palate's kind of drenched in it, to where, I mean, you're sitting back and you're just kind of like that pumpkin pie feeling, because I mean, it's so rich, it's so thick, and it leaves you with that everlasting impression. Would it be my favorite? No, because of the fact that this bottle alone is rather pricey. I paid $16.79 for this bottle.
Ouch.
So, I mean, with that said, would I go with another option per se? But just for a special occasion or maybe even Thanksgiving dinner, I would probably pick up another one of these and maybe a bottle of the Autumn that you just had the other day. But with those, I would just be fine for my Thanksgiving dinner, and I would ratherly enjoy one of these beers with a piece of a really nice big piece of pumpkin pie. And as always, it's a joy when these come out throughout the season, man. So for me, this is good. Back to you, John.
All right, thanks, Scott. $16.99. That's the interesting thing about that is that it sells for $10.99 here in Georgia, and I know that phenomenon because Terrapin does the same thing. They price their beers kind of high here in Georgia, and people tell me all the time in other markets that they get them for a lot less than. Very strange. Don't understand it, but I guess that's part of the beer business today. Well, I want to thank you guys. This has been a lot of fun. I hope our first little treatise here on styles, pumpkin beers today, is helpful for the viewers. And of course, this will be posted. It'll be on YouTube, so members of the group will post a link so they can check it out. Everybody watching and to everybody participating, I hope you have a very happy Thanksgiving holiday coming up and enjoy some great pumpkin ales on that day. We will be back in December, and we'll take a look at not necessarily a specific style, but winter and Christmas brews. They really run the gamut over every possible style. Every brewery does something different. Some of them spice them, some of them don't, and their various strengths and what have you. So I think that'll be fun. And again, everybody, thanks for joining, and we'll see you next month. Cheers.
Cheers.